And which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump. One of the main things you look for is this nonsense about, oh, yes, of course we want to secure the border, but not a wall. Look, if they won't put a wall on the border, they're not serious about it. So you have Chris Christie saying, yes, we want to secure the border, but I've seen the human spirit. A wall won't work. You have Jeb Bush saying it's an act of love. You have, various others saying, no, we're going to have drones and high technology. Drones and high technology on the border is a synonym for no wall. What's a drone going to do? So we can watch them run across the border? That's great. But, our country's being ruined, but at least we'll be entertained.
What about, because the supporters, on the other side, look at the polls like this one from CBS News, and they say the American people are behind doing something to allow people to stay. Look at this. Republican voters believe immigrants in the U.S. illegally should be allowed to stay 55%. Does that mean the Republicans, are against you on this?
I don't think so. I think it's the way questions are asked. I mean, that's very personal. You don't want to feel like you're being mean to the people who are here. And yeah, a lot of them are admirable. A lot of them are good people. That shouldn't be the question for someone running to be the president of the United States. The question should be, does this help America? And I'd like to ask them, how many immigrants are enough? We already have 42 million immigrants in this country. These guys all talk about how they want to go back to the era of Reagan, and they'd be Reagan. Well, in the 80s, when Reagan was elected, 1 of every 16 people residing in America was foreign-born. Today, it's 1 in 7. 1 in 7. At what point? Okay, we have 42 million now. 100 million? 200 million? How many are enough?
But the other side says, for the 11 to 12 million who are here now, it is impractical, if not impossible, to talk about deporting them.
Well, I liked Romney's answer to that. Enforce E-Verify, and they'll go home the same way they came. I mean, everyone made fun of Mitt Romney for saying they'd self-deport. Oh, it's so impractical. And there aren't 12 million. There are at least 30 million. Okay, so let's say 30 million. How are 30 million going to self-deport? Are you going to round them up? Well, we didn't round them up to get them here. They're going to go home the same way they came.
Ann, thank you.
Thank you.
Is true or not true, that's what you should be judged by. How am I wrong?
Well, A, then the NAACP and the White House are far more guilty than Breitbart because they didn't wait to see the full video. And by the way, the NAACP had the full video. Breitbart didn't fire anyone. Breitbart didn't have the full video. And if we could get back to your claim that what you care about is the truth, why do you keep repeating the despicable lie that John Lewis was called the N-word 15 times on Capitol Hill at the anti-Obama protest? That is a lie.
Hold on.
And you have repeated that. This network repeats it. All these networks repeated. That is a lie. At least Shirley Sharon got her reputation back.
Hold on. Let's be fair. Let's be fair. We attribute that to the congressman who made that assertion. That's called attribution.
It wasn't John Lewis.
Well, there were several there who've actually said that. They said it in a press conference. But let me come back to the matter of hand there. So you're...
No. There's a $100,000 reward for anyone who can produce a video of someone calling John Lewis the N-word one time, not to say 15 times.
And you're convinced...
That reward has been out there for 3 months.
And you're convinced that because no one has taken the money that it didn't happen? I mean...
There is more evidence that you have a problem with kiddie porn. I have as much evidence for that as you do that John Lewis was called the N-word. By the way, in fact, I have more evidence because there hasn't been the press searching all over you, trying to find your problem with kiddie porn, and a $100,000 reward for anyone who can produce evidence of your problem with kiddie porn. So I have a lot more evidence that you have a problem with kiddie porn than that any Tea Partier ever called John Lewis the N-word one time, forget 15 times.
All right, you and I are not going to solve that because I wasn't there and neither were you, and all we've done is attributed what some people have said. that.
Okay,
and we'll wait
I
for
wasn't
that.
in your
we'll wait for
private
the
room
person.
when you were going
we'll
through
wait
kitty
for that
porn.
person. We'll wait for that person to come in with and accept the $100,000 reward.
How
and see
long
if that
do you
happens.
wait? You have made an accusation
but you're trying
that
to prove a negative, Ann.
a great civil rights hero was called the N-word.
You're trying to prove a negative, and I
cameras
want to get
all
back.
over.
And I want to get back to this point. All right?
Okay, you prove you don't have a problem with kitty porn.
No, I don't want to talk about kitty porn. I want to go back to the assertion
More
that you
evidence
made.
of that.
Gas pedal, gas pedal, gas pedal, gas pedal.
Why would people believe that when we've seen an election that has divided this country in a way that it hasn't been divided before?
For one thing, people say that every election. It has not been coming from Donald Trump's camp. It has come from endless slanderous attacks from the media, from his own party, from the other party. Trump has never attacked Hillary Clinton supporters. He's reached out to Bernie Sanders supporters. It's Hillary who referred to his supporters as deplorables, referred to Bernie Sanders supporters as living in their parents' basement. He has always been inclusive, even the Republicans who attacked him in the primaries and betrayed their pledge to support him. He invited them to speak at his rally. He reached out to them. He has constantly reached out, and he's had his hand bitten off.
What about accusing some Mexicans of being rapists as coming in here? What about calling women dogs and pigs? Is it reaching out to the parts of the electorate?
For Pete's sake, this is that came out at the first debate. The dogs and pigs are things he said as a reality TV host. He's joking around.
And what about the Mexicans?
Tell the speech. Stop saying he's calling Mexicans rapists. Yes, of course, Mexico is not sending their best people. They are sending drug dealers. They are sending rapists. And you know who knows that best of all? The legal Mexican immigrants who are trying to get away from those Mexican rapists.
How do you think he'll bring this country together? You've got your hands on your hips. You've made me put my hands on my hips. Absolutely. You tell me how he's going to get this country back together after this toxic campaign.
I don't know what get the country together. He's going to build a wall. He's going to bring back jobs. He's going to bring back the economy. Americans have been suffering horribly for 30, 40 years now, especially in manufacturing jobs, the entire Midwest. They're going to be very unhappy on Wall Street. Very, very unhappy. So this town will not be happy with Donald Trump's election. But out in America where they need jobs, where their schools are being overwhelmed with people from very different cultures who don't speak English, they're paying for English as a second language classes, their emergency rooms are full. This is all about immigration. And apparently a lot of Americans agree, no matter how much they've portrayed Donald Trump as a monster, and he isn't a monster.
Let's start with you, Ann. Is there a double standard in how the media covered the Trayvon Martin story and these two murders that occurred just this week?
Yes, absolutely. This is what my last book is about, Mugged, Racial Demagoguery from the 70s to Obama. It was much worse in the 70s, 80s.
What was much worse in the 70s?
Well, we're getting back to it. Obama brought it all back, and that's this racial etiquette from the media where they don't report on the much more common black-on-white crime, but the very rare man bites dog story, a white-on-black crime, that gets covered hysterically, not because it's a man bites dog story, but they act as if, no, this is all too common, it's the racism in America. No, it's very rare. And one example from my book, rape cases, interracial rape cases, the number of black-on-white rapes going back, I have 15 years. 15 years, there are about 1,000 to 2,000 a year black-on-white rapes. For 15 years, according to the Department of Justice victimization surveys, the number of white-on-black rapes are either 0.0 or sample too small for a number.
Let me ask you this, Ann. Isn't it more about black-on-black crime? Isn't that really the biggest category, black-on-black?
Yes.
But they don't talk about that either.
We're in a racial war. Blacks are winning, and they're fighting other blacks, but they are kicking their butts.
Richard, let's hear what you have to say about this, Richard.
I mean, thanks for having me, Judge. I got to tell you, I've seen the media cover this particular case, this Oklahoma shooting, this whole entire week. So I'm not really sure where Ann's getting her information from, but we've seen this covered almost every day this week since it's happened.
I think you've been watching a lot of Fox News, which I salute.
That's not true at all. It was on CNN. It's been on MSNBC. It's been on all the local networks here in Washington, D.C. So I think you're, I don't know, maybe you're not watching. Maybe you're watching the wrong channel.
Well, yeah,
the president said, I haven't heard about this.
Ann makes an interesting point. Do you remember when the president weighed in saying he could have been Trayvon Martin? You didn't hear him weighing in and saying
which one he would have been.
This could have happened to his son or anybody. I mean, why that case? I mean, coming from the top, Richard, isn't it?
No, but Judge, I think there's a big distinction between the Trayvon Martin case and this individual in Oklahoma. First, let's be honest here, right? Anytime somebody is killed, it's a heinous thing, it's a horrible thing. The one thing that connects Trayvon and the guy who died in Oklahoma is that they were both young individuals who had their whole lives ahead of them. The distinction here is that there is indication that there's a possibility of racial profiling in the George Zimmerman case, which made it a reason for the president to comment. As an African-American man, just like I'm an African-American man, there is people racially profile. In this particular situation, Trayvon Martin was racially profiled.
Even the prosecutor brought these charges without going to the grand jury, I might add, said that race had nothing to do with it, that it was in response to inquiry about who that person was that would look suspicious. But let's get back to this. You say that there is enough coverage of this black-on-white crime, and you say that there isn't.
Well, you technically introduced the subject, but I do think it's been covered a lot more on Fox News than it has been other places. And part of the reason this and the Shorty case, I don't think the Shorty case has shown up any place on MSNBC. Yes, it was the cover of Drudge. We do have some of our own media now. But the only reason they're even being covered by Fox News and by Drudge is because it's in the wake of Trayvon Martin, when we were told that, you know, black people in America have to be afraid of whites murdering them.
What about the tweets of 16-year-old, I believe, James Edwards? 90% of white people are nasty. # hate them. It's time to start taking lives. I've never been this meaning mad in my life. I mean, this guy actually is on social media talking about how much he hates white people, and then what you've got are the two of them in the back seat, and they're killing a white person.
Well, but I hear that. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he should. I mean, I think that tweet is inappropriate. I think we should all work on getting along. At the end of the day, and I think, Judge, you can agree here.
No, this isn't about getting along, Richard, with all due respect. This is about hoodlums running around and killing other people.
I agree with you,
This is about
Judge.
an 88-year-old man who was beaten to death, someone who put his life on the line for us. Why? Why is there so much anger?
I agree with all those points. I'm not justifying the crime at all. I think in both situations, all those thugs should go behind bars if they are proven guilty.
All right. Richard, last question. Who do young black people in America look up to today?
I mean, I think there's a lot of good role models out there for them to look up to. I think a lot of folks look up to the President of the United States. You can look up to your family. I mean, that's a hard question to answer, but I think there's a lot of African-American role models out
I just want to answer why quickly, because that goes back 2 books back to Guilty. It is very, very heavily associated with single motherhood and the destruction of mostly the black family, but the white families are catching up.
Be allowed to stay 55%. Does that mean the Republicans are against you on this?
I don't think so. I think it's the way questions are asked. I mean, that's very personal. You don't want to feel like you're being mean to the people who are here. And yeah, a lot of them are admirable. A lot of them are good people. That shouldn't be the question for someone running to be the president of the United States. The question should be, does this help America? And I thought, oh, yes, of course we want to secure the border, but not a wall. Look, if they won't put a wall on the border, they're not serious about it. So you have Chris Christie saying, yes, we want to secure the border, but I've seen the human spirit. A wall won't work. You have Jeb Bush saying it's an act of love. You have, various others saying, no, we're going to have drones and high technology. Drones and high technology on the border is a...
And which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump. One of the main things you look for is this nonsense about synonym for no wall. What's a drone going to do? So we can watch them run across the border? That's great, but our country's being ruined, but at least we'll be entertained.
What about, because the supporters, on the other side, look at the polls like this one from CBS News, and they say the American people are behind doing something to allow people to stay. Look at this. Republican voters believe immigrants in the U.S. illegally should...
I'd like to ask them, how many immigrants are enough? We already have 42 million immigrants in this country. These guys all talk about how they want to go back to the era of Reagan, and they'd be Reagan. Well, in the 80s, when Reagan was elected, 1 of every 16 people residing in America was foreign-born. Today, it's 1 in 7. 1 in 7. At what point? Okay, we have 42 million now.